Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is one in a series of seminars we're doing on sustainability. And if this is your first one, a big welcome from the Parnell Business Association. My name is Cheryl Adamson. I'm the GM. And this morning we have two speakers on the subject of carbon certification. The first is Josephine Rudkin-Binks from Toitū, and the second is Brendan Drury from Orbiton House of Travel. So I'm going to, without further ado, hand over to Joey to take you through the first part of the presentation.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. Hopefully you can see my presentation.
Yep.
Great, that worked. Love it when technology plays its part. So, morena everybody, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Josephine Tokuingawa, ko Toitū Envirocare. So as Cheryl says, I'm with Toitū Envirocare, but I also sit on the Parnell Business Association board. Toitū have been in Parnell for about 8 years. We're just on Augustus Terrace. And so I'm delighted to be part of this webinar series with you. So I'm going to be talking about navigating your carbon reduction journey. And my agenda is really to firstly talk about the benefits of decarbonisation. What is a carbon footprint, how you measure a carbon footprint, so a business footprint. And Cheryl also wanted me to talk a bit about the sort of future price of carbon. So I will be getting my crystal ball out at that stage. So just firstly, very briefly, Toitū Envirocare, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Manaaki Whenua Landcare Research. So we're one of the New Zealand Government Crown Research Institutes. We're 100% New Zealand owned. We've been operating for over 20 years, and we have some clients that are coming up to that milestone as well. And we operate a number of carbon and environmental programs. So Toitū Carbon Reduce and Toitū Carbon Zero, two certification marks that you might be familiar with. But we're also a certified B Corp. So that means that we're a business that is focused on purpose above profit. And so it's, we're for impact. So it's a really nice kind of operating model. When you, I'm going to talk mainly about business footprints, because obviously this is the Parnell Business Association. But when you measure a footprint, you actually can measure it for an organization, for a product or service, for an event, a building, a farm. So there's a number of different ways. So in terms of sort of why decarbonize, what's your reason? And there are many benefits to decarbonising your business. And you might be interested today for one of these particular reasons or for all of them. But certainly from the organisations that we work with, they do say it saves them money. They go looking for carbon and they find that they're spending money on services and things that perhaps could be avoided or to be reduced. They are really delighted that they're obviously improving their overall environmental outcomes and reducing impact. And what we're hearing, and I know that Paul from Europlan's on the call, so we know that people are starting to see tenders and RFPs coming through that are actually asking about business credentials. And so it's going to become a bit of a license to operate. And then other benefits like recruiting and retaining staff, we know are really important. I'm going to give you some stats from a recent Colmar Brunton. It's the Better Business Survey. And in it, it actually says that 88% of Kiwis want businesses to do more about climate change. And so what's really important, 86% in that survey said it's important for them to work for a company that's socially and environmentally responsible. But also on the flip side, 90% of people in that report said that if they heard about a company being irresponsible or unethical, they'd actually stop buying their products and services. So this is very much where I sort of talk about it becoming a license to operate and that it can enhance brand value. But what we're finding as more businesses are realizing that actually kind of going green and being sustainable is good for business as well. It is unfortunately bringing out businesses that are sort of just painting themselves green and just to sort of attract that ethical consumer. And so it is actually becoming more challenging to convince consumers of business credentials. And so that rose in the 2018 report up to 83%. And I know that that stat continues to increase now. We also know that companies, and we're seeing this very strong signals from the market, that companies that outperform in environmental, social and governance areas are actually achieving higher margins. There was a recent report on sustainable investment report across kind of global sustainable investments. And in the last 2 years, sustainable investment growth has risen by 15%. And in the US alone, they're saying that this is now worth $35 trillion in investments. And so we know here, just even in New Zealand, we've seen things like our super fund and various other funds starting to not work with coal reliance organizations, but also to decarbonize themselves. We know that brands are kind of starting to win people over, and we've seen this at Toitū. We're working with a lot of different now types of products and services, and we've seen a huge demand increase for our programs. And that's panning out in sort of different ways. So I've mentioned we certify events. So this year we did the Splore Festival, and we also did the America's Cup campaign. I've literally this morning seen a sort of thread going through LinkedIn about, they're not calling it the All Blacks, they're calling them the Oil Blacks. And there's quite a campaign amongst people trying to stop the recent sponsorship of the All Blacks by INEOS. And so, you know, this kind of ethical stance that people are having, we're seeing is panning out in lots of different ways. But measuring your carbon footprint's relevant for any type of business. You don't have to be a certain sector. You don't have to be heavily reliant on fossil fuels. Any businesses will have a carbon footprint in various ways. And so regardless of your size or your sector, it is a good thing to do. So what actually is a carbon footprint? Now, my daughter, now 16, but when I first started with Toitū 12 years ago, when I told her about what I did as a job, I think she actually thought I went out measuring feet and worked at somewhere like Future Feet and actually measuring footprints. But actually a carbon footprint for a business, the things that you measure are things like all your fuels, electricity, your business travel, your waste, all types of freight and transport, refrigerants. So they're all the things that make up a business footprint. An example of a local Parnell business, so Auckland DHB, so this is obviously Auckland Hospital, Starship, etc. We've been working with them for 6 years, and they've now reduced their carbon footprint by over 30%, which is a phenomenal reduction. Here you can see their top 10 kind of emission sources, so probably comes as no surprise that the energy, so gas and electric, they're very energy intensive businesses, but also their business travel. Well, this is their 19-20 year footprint. And so some of this was pre-COVID, so there is some travel in there. Obviously their latest footprint, which is just coming through their audit now, their business travel is reduced massively, but they anticipate that when international conferences start again, consultants will start to travel. But what they want to try and do is use this as an opportunity to show them how they've been able to reduce. So some of the things at Auckland DHB, so they set targets. They had a target to achieve 30% by 2020, which they've done, absolutely bang on. And now they're looking to reduce their footprint by 40% by 2025. What they've done is they've actually developed a policy called Energy 50/50. And in that policy, what they're planning to do is to further reduce their energy consumption by 50%, which is a massive target. But also the other 50, hence the Energy 50/50, is they want to generate 50% of their own energy on site. So really showing what kind of leadership, and from what we're seeing in their journey at the moment is they're very focused on that. So they're looking to generate as much of their own energy as they can on site. So solar, looking at some turbines, looking at ways to capture energy from things like their incinerators to reuse. So really being very innovative. And what I love about when sort of public health facilities are able to reduce footprints, we work with a number of the DHBs, is actually one of the light bulb moments with the DHBs quite a few years ago was realizing that if you focus on reducing emissions, it actually improves better health outcomes as well at the same time. So it's a really nice fit. One of the things that's really important when you're looking to measure a footprint is actually following a standard. If you're going to them at the sort of tail end of when you've certified or measured your footprint, you're going to want to be able to communicate it. It is important that you follow a standard. So there are ISO standards that exist. We also follow the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. So we have behind our programs are these ISO standards. And actually Toitū was the first in the world to certify against the ISO standard. We like having firsts, and we have a number of clients that have been first in their own journeys or in their sectors as well. So how do you measure a footprint? I'm going to cover this sort of annual cycle quite quickly, but I'm going to go from the sort of measure through to the market steps. So firstly is around measurement. So prepare, bring a plan, bring a team together. Really good to have people from across the business working in different areas, helping someone from finance because it's very data driven. Set a base year. So we've obviously got a challenge with organizations with their COVID years, if that's going to be their base year. So setting a base year is around where you draw a line in the sand and say, okay, every year from now on, we're always going to compare back to that base year. So that use of that base year is important. Think about how you want to communicate your footprint and to who, and what's the use of that. We call that kind of intended use and intended users. And then make sure that your boundary of your organization encompasses all of those. Then it's about measuring. So if you're working with Toitū, we provide really good cloud-based software to help you do this. But you need to then put in, so when I was talking about things like electricity, it's kilowatts that we're after. If you're able to use actual primary data and more accurate data like litres and kilowatts and tons per kilometre, your footprint will be a lot more accurate. So that's the measure step. Next, we go to manage. Now, one thing that's really important, whether organizations are going carbon zero or carbon reduce, is the reduction first. So actually setting targets first. We don't allow organizations to just measure a footprint and offset without having a management plan in place. And so that's really important. Toitū isn't about just selling carbon credits to organizations. As I mentioned right at the start, we're for impact and purpose. So what we want is we want organizations to reduce. So when you're setting your kind of reduction targets, be bold. Think of the Auckland DHB example with their 50-50. What could you achieve? What can you achieve right now? What could you achieve in 5 years, in 20 years' time? So set those targets over time. What's really important as well with those targets, and you'll hear me sort of talk about getting buy-in quite a bit, but actually make sure you get buy-in with your team on those targets, particularly from senior leadership team and the CEO, etc. The next step's verification. So I talked about the sort of it's becoming harder to convince consumers about your environmental credentials. And so this is where a verification and an audit is really important to be able to give you the confidence to go out and make a robust claim about what you've done. Also, what we find is even though organizations maybe have tried to follow the ISO standard or they've had even with help from Toitū, when a third party comes in and actually audits it, they will find things that that maybe have been missed. And so it's really important to have that additional stage so that you're setting targets on actual correct numbers. Then mitigate, as I said, you only need to do this stage. Mitigate or offset, this is only required if you're then wanting to make a carbon zero claim. If you're going for carbon reduce and about communicating that you've measured and you've managed, then you skip this stage. Otherwise, you would need to, if your footprint, say, has come out at 200 tons of CO2, you would need to purchase 200 carbon credits to offset that so that you can make a carbon zero, carbon neutral claim. And that process, as I say, is an annual cycle. The next thing is about marketing then, and this is what gets me really excited, is about how can you then be authentic and transparent with your journey, but also how can you leverage this? You've put some hard work in here, and it's important to leverage this to all your stakeholders. So how can you engage with your staff if you haven't already brought them on this journey with you? How do you now get them to buy into the journey and get excited about certification? How can they use it in the conversations with your customers, but also other stakeholders like your suppliers? You'll have seen some from the information that you need to gather. A lot of it's from suppliers, so it is important to make sure that you are working with them as well on this journey and encouraging them to measure their own footprints. So that's a bit about the journey. Just briefly on carbon credits. So as I mentioned, this carbon credits are only required if you're wanting to make a carbon neutral or carbon zero claim. Carbon credits are awarded for projects that store, avoid, or reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. In New Zealand, they're native forest regeneration credits. And overseas, we have some projects in wind, solar cook stoves, and some other projects. Really good quality. We follow an international standard for the types of carbon credits, because as you might be aware, not all carbon credits are equal in terms of quality. So robustness of these credits is really important. In terms of sort of putting my crystal ball on now as to where carbon prices may go, we've seen quite a rise in the last few years. But I came across this chart yesterday when I was sort of looking at kind of global carbon prices. And it was really interesting where they've linked extreme weather events has really put the price on kind of carbon. Now, this is where governments and countries have put targets, set emission targets. New Zealand's about to release its emission budgets for the next 14 years. And so what we know is a lot more organizations are making carbon neutral net claims and wanting to move their businesses over the next few years. That's just not in New Zealand, but globally. So globally, organizations like Microsoft, Danone, Nestle, Walmart, Unilever, so really major organizations are making targets, and some of them are now. Microsoft's gone now, others are sort of 2025, 2030, and so this is going to have an impact. Currently, the New Zealand native forest regeneration credits are around $55 each. We anticipate those probably by 2030 being somewhere between $150 and $250 each. So it really is going to drive people to decarbonize as much as they can now to avoid those costs. And in New Zealand, we have obviously an emissions trading scheme. Currently, 11 cents per litre is the price on fuel for those organizations covering their ETS levies. So you might be thinking, I'm not sure if the ETS or carbon pricing is going to affect me, but actually it will affect us all in the products and services that we buy, because those organizations are most likely to pass those costs on to consumers. As I mentioned, we're working with quite a few organizations for quite a while, and what we see, and many of these have been working on their footprint for quite a while, but over our top 10 last year, the average reduction was 26%. So, and as we saw just from the Auckland DHB example, it's huge footprint, but it's huge dollars as well. So, it really does make good sense to be looking at this for your business. In terms of sort of where do you get where do you start, and some tips and resources. So sort of, and some of this is a bit of a recap, but measure, because you can't manage what you haven't measured. Tackle the low-hanging fruit. When you start to measure your footprint, there'll be really quick, easy wins that you can have. Some of these might be quite small in terms of materiality to your footprint, but they're great for those quick wins and building engagement. Set targets to reduce, and short, medium, and long-term targets. Engage with your team. The earlier you can do that, the better. The organizations that we see that are the greatest reducers are the organizations that have engaged with people early and taken their team and their suppliers and stakeholders on this journey with them. Have your footprint verified so that you can be really confident and make robust claims about your credentials and the journey that you're on. And then be really authentic. I've said that before, but be authentic and transparent. This is a journey, and you're setting targets over a long period. So it's important to just share and be honest with where you're at. It isn't easy. It's quite a minefield. So it's good to share that, and the pains and the gains with people as you go. Where to go for help? So I've got a couple of slides on sort of resources. So Toitū, if you're a business that is run from home, or you would like to tackle your own household footprint, then we on our website have a free to use household calculator. We also offer a Toitū Carbon Assess, which is a footprint tool aimed at SMEs. So if you're, say, sort of 10 employees or less, that's a great tool to use. Only costs $30 a month. It isn't verified, so it's very much if you're really early in your journey and just want to get a sort of snapshot of really your sort of top 5 emission sources. Otherwise, I'd recommend you to go with a full program, which is internationally recognized, obviously, and independently verified as well. What you can do personally, so measure your own household footprint. Encourage your team members to do their own. Encourage, if you're in a business and you're an employee, encourage your owners or your or your landlord or your other stakeholders measuring either their own footprint or business footprint. There's some other great resources as well. So Auckland Council have Live Lightly. There's some great resources on there. The Sustainable Business Network have their Climate Action Toolkit, and again, some really good, easy to use resources available. And then EECA, the Energy Efficiency Conservation Authority, and GenLess, you'll find some really good tips as well on their website. So we'll make sure that these are up on the Parnell website too, and we're going to be continually adding to these resources for you too. So that's it from me. I hope that's been useful, and I'm delighted. We've been working with Brendan at House of Travel for quite a while now, 10 plus years, and Brendan's not just a client but a friend as well, so I'm delighted to be able now to hand over to Brendan at House of Travel. I think we're doing questions at the end.
Thanks, Joey.
But feel free to send any questions through in the chat if you like as well.
Right, hopefully you can see my slide.
Yes.
We can see the slides and the next one, Brendan. I don't know if you want to change that.
That's annoying. Is it working?
Nope.
Nope.
Don't you love these
There we go.
technologies?
There we
There
go.
you go. Brilliant.
Great, thank you. So thanks, Joe. That was really good, and it is such a massive topic, and it's always hard to know where to start. And I guess in respect to House Travel and Orbit, we kind of have zones where we have a zone of BC, we call before Corona, and then we're in what we are now. Just to kind of give you a quick introduction of what our businesses are. Orbit World Travel is a business-to-business corporate travel management company, and it looks after a number of corporate clients, and New Zealand owned, and my ownership is 50-50 House of Travel. And I guess in respect to the presentation now, it's very much about a journey and what we've kind of been doing. And also I have to kind of really acknowledge where we are in respect to COVID-19 and the pandemic and the impact it has had on the business, and how we're kind of mitigating through that, and how sustainability is kind of still, very much topical and very much still key. So we celebrate, sorry, I'll just get rid of, sorry, I'm just having, let's move some things here. So we celebrate 10 years as Carbon Zero certified, and we have really taken this on a long time ago. When you think about when 10 years ago, back in 2011. And as a group, we have basically really been working hard at, what is that? What else can we keep doing? What else do we need to do? Orbit isn't just in Auckland. We have locations through New Zealand, and we are on the All Government panel. We have locations in Dunedin, Nelson, Christchurch, Hamilton, etc. And I guess what we have committed to as a group to a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. So we've got a lot of goals that we have in place currently. I'm harking back, and I know I'm digging deep here. 2013, we managed to get in as a finalist in the Green Ribbon Awards for the Small Business Leadership category. So we're a winner, but we were really rapt to be there, kind of in the beehive, etc. It was really cool. But what it probably, I sat there looking at it and going, wow, we're miles behind. And even though we got recognised and a bit of a nod, because you've got to think about it, we're a travel company, and travel, everybody looks at travel as, planes, and it's, people traveling, and there's carbon emissions. So from that perspective, it is kind of a, frowned upon, but loved. It's quite a unique industry to be in, and even more challenging as the border shuts. But we realised there that there were really quite humble organisations that were winning these awards and doing it on the smell of an oily rag. And I mean, we weren't massively rich, but I mean, at all. But seeing what they were doing was quite inspiring. What we believe is the journey, and I've talked a lot to Josephine and I'll call her Joey about this at Toitu. It is a journey. It isn't a, right, we're going to turn on the switch and we're off, and it's all done. This is going to take time. It takes a lot to get people on board. We do, and what I want to share with you is not only is it in our business, which is important, but it's also how we're interacting with our clients. That's probably quite, equally important. And I know, Joey, you talked about that, about the suppliers. This is a really quite key part, and I'm going to delve into a little bit on reporting that we provide to our clients. And I guess that it's important we share that sustainability with our clients, and the commitment to what we're doing. And it is a topic on our reviews. When we do quarterly reviews with our clients, we reflect back on the travel that's been spent, the hotels that have been stayed at, the car rentals that have been booked, taxis or whatever it might be. But we're looking at spend, we're looking at ways of reducing, but also we focus on sustainability. And in fact, what can we do more working with our clients to assist? And it's a real interesting tug, because we earn as a client travels in some cases we don't, depending on the pricing, on the price point. But overall, we pretty much earn as a client travels. So for us to be advocating to not travel is quite an interesting tension. To give you an idea of the type of clients that we have, and it just gives you a quick smattering, and this is nothing, this is known by all our clients, but at least it gives you an idea of the size. There's all kinds of spends and different segments, etc. Okay. And as I mentioned, we do work with our suppliers really well. We have a Orbit Plus hotel preferred program, so we've got a really good, well negotiated program. But what we actually do, we actually work quite closely with these suppliers, and we have clients that will not stay in a hotel that is not with a sustainable program at all. They won't do it, and it won't be in the preferred program, and they won't want it shown. So we've got to create technology in our online booking tools to ensure that we are not showing those kind of properties. Sustainability can move into earthquake safety, all that kind of thing as well. But again, if there's no drive to be sustainable, then some organisations will just say we really are not wanting to partner with a property, and that's quite key to them. So we have to kind of make sure that we are keeping very much abreast of what hotels are doing. We had a workshop before Corona hit, kind of late 19, and it was, I think every single presentation that we went to, we kind of moved around the hotels, and we had it actually at a hotel, and they were basically updating us on what they're doing from a sustainability perspective. That was their topic. Usually it's like, we've got a great lobby and these are the room types and this is the conference facilities. They didn't do that. All the properties that we were working with, it had totally switched on to sustainability. Just going back to Orbit and House of Travel and kind of what we do. So again, they're not, I feel like this is just, something that you would do anyway, but the use of number of company vehicles. I mean, we're kind of reducing down as we can. If anybody leaves and there's a car attached, that car goes. So we're now down to 2, which is really positive for us. We're doing a lot more. There's a lot more walking, and there's probably other means of transport, and again supporting sustainable suppliers as well. The old double-sided, the recycling waste products, all those things. I know that this would be on your mind. Knowing one of the board members is JasMax Hamish, and they did a really great update in showing us the worm farm they've got in their basement at JasMax in Parnell. Things like that are so really cool, and you really get right into it. It actually makes sustainability quite interesting, and you want to kind of get into it. When we move into travel, it's moved from from the days of, you used to have that beautiful carbonated ticket, and you would, here we go, with paper, and you would check in and they would rip a coupon out. And it's not that long ago, it's probably 90s. Now, everything's electronic now. And as the world changed, and as refunds and credits basically became quite the story, this is all electronically managed, and with great technology behind it to ensure that we can get through. You've got to remember that with the pandemic, we've had to re-engineer. You don't build your business around reversing it to go backwards, and that's pretty much what the whole travel industry has had to do. You've had to basically reverse the whole booking process, and you probably wonder why it takes so long to get a refund or a credit. Well, it wasn't geared up. You'll do a few refunds in a month, but not generally. People book, they go. They don't need en masse a refund. So the good news is that a lot of this is not impacting the environment. It's all done with technology. And I mean, we even moved into ticket wallets, biodegradable ticket wallets as well. So, again, some people still want to have some documentation. You got your passport. I would say that a lot of this will probably disappear, will all end up in the app environment at some point. You've got to remember also that, COVID-19, I mean, I've already got my, I just turned up for the record, but I got my vaccination certificates. They're little pieces of paper. Well, that's very probably not where it needs to be right now. But, I'm hoping that we believe it will be going into an app, and it will be electronically available. But there's a lot of discussion on that. But again, this is sustainable, and it's definitely a way to go, rather than having pieces of paper and turning up. In the old days, you'd have, if you're getting a vaccination, a yellow fever for Africa, you'd have a big certificate, and you'd be handing it in, and etc. So things are moving in that direction well. And I think Joey talked about education and really updating your team. And I think one of the big ones is having it in your business plan, and it's in the business plan. It's kind of one of the key pillars of what you're doing as a business. You're often looking at growth, you're looking at retention, you're looking at operational excellence, you're looking at marketing, but sustainability is definitely key. I mean, and people and culture as well. Innovation, we've got a program called Orbit Offset, which I'll talk about very soon. I talked about Power BI. I'll just speed up a little bit, but we work with Power BI, and you can see the kind of technology is just showing you the Airbnb, hotel, car, destination online, what the adoption is, because it's cheaper to go online yourself with our own online booking tool technology that's interfaced with the travel policy, etc., and showing you when you book. So it's all good, but getting into and then breaking it down into cost centers, etc. But then being able to provide flight carbon emissions, so you're actually able to show what has been spent and the carbon kg, etc. So this is the kind of technology that is available, and this is what we're putting into our clients, and being able to guide them on what they're spending and how they're impacting the environment by doing that spending. I want to give you just one show here. This is Sitetrick, which is a fairly new online booking tool, but you can just see in there, you basically, just to give you a catch up, I've just made an availability booking to show me I want to go Auckland, Wellington, Auckland. Auckland, Wellington. Auckland, Wellington at 6 a.m. on the 23rd of September. So you can see there, it's given the CO kgs, and it's actually, you can actually do a display based on that as well. So you've got lowest price, but also on CO2. And I think that's where it's heading. You're getting upfront information about what your impact is. The other online booking tool, there's a whole lot of work coming, and I've just kind of grabbed it. These are just kind of mocks of what it's going to look like. But your journey breakdown, say on that Qantas flight from Melbourne to Perth, that's showing you the 279 kg total in respect to the travel journey. So, I mean, it's even getting a bit more blunt, going 2 trees cut down, 500 k's in the car. So it's getting a bit punchy. But it is giving a lot more, and this online technology that we have with Zeno, which is a great New Zealand organisation based in Parnell that we partner with. This is the kind of prototype they're coming through with to show the carbon offset tracker, things like that. So it's actually making it quite meaningful. And again, it's just putting context into what you can actually see as you're making the journey, making the booking journey. So moving into Orbit as well. So we basically came into a partnership with Toitu, and we've been in this partnership for a while, but we wanted to lift it to a new level and help our clients to offset their goals quite well. But what we've ended up with is a offset for air, hotel and car that's been totally accredited from a government perspective. And so we've got 3 offerings that we're putting to our clients now, and one is kind of further enhanced reporting, carbon reducing, carbon zero reporting, and then a full offset. So we can actually centralize all billing. So we do one invoice for a client, so for all air, all the chargebacks for hotel and car, and then you can actually put, you can offset your carbon emissions as well on the same bill. So we're just trying to be a little bit more unique and offer something that's a little bit different. Now, there's a whole step from choosing your portfolio, what you want, capturing the itinerary. We calculate the footprint with our calculator that's been Toitu approved and certified. and provide the reporting and then offset the carbon footprint. Now, what it's about is actually just being, like I talked a little bit earlier, it's about the journey. And if you're able to manage just travel, it's just a start. And, again, it's not trying to achieve everything. It's actually just making the start. And travel's a great topic. It's always one that everybody wants to kind of try and deal with. People are reporting on it. It's quite an emotive topic. And I mean, it has been kind of put off a little bit derailed with the border closure. But that, we're preparing right now. We're preparing quite fast, even though it feels like the world is ending at the moment. But we are preparing for the world the border to open. And just even today, Singapore Airlines are moving planes out of the desert right now. So things are moving. So portfolio is available. So how we offset 100% international, we've got a 70-30, a 30 international, 70% New Zealand, or 100% New Zealand. So, and as we've done it, I've enjoyed doing this because we can actually be quite localized in what we do. It might be the last offset we did was a forest north of Puhoi, which is really cool. And the kind of reporting, what it would look like, so we go through this with our clients, etc. And, as I say, 13 years, for us, it's been quite a journey, and we feel really proud that we're not just kind of a 1 minute wonder. We've actually been doing this for a long time. What we're faced with is our location we've had to move locations due to the COVID situations. We've had to move into Shortland Street for the time being, and with our head office. So all of a sudden, there's this new kind of zone that we have to face in respect to what we're doing, in respect to our offset and our carbon zero certification. So we might bring our brothers in House of Travel head office on the journey. I've talked a little bit about, we've been a strong winner of the Travel Agents Association of New Zealand for 4 years running, and it stopped, you can appreciate, September 2019 was the last awards. But sustainability was always key to our presentation and when we had to go and present what we did. And it was always a topic that we had to cover. Just shows you how important it is. Now, you'll just see on the last slide, there's a barcode. You can actually put your camera through that barcode and it will download the flyer. So you can have a look at that. It just is another way, when we launched this program, it just gives you another kind of view of how to, what we did. We did this so we didn't have any flyers or anything like that. So we're trying to live the dream here. And, it was quite fun. A lot of our clients took that, took their photos and were able to download this on their phone. So I hope that gives you a bit of an understanding of what we've been doing at Orbit and House of Travel. And I'll stop there and let you see if anybody's got any questions for either of us.
Awesome. Are there any questions from the floor? You can either do that by typing it in the chat or raising your hand. Hopefully I can see you. Okay, question for Josephine from Hannah. What's considered a mandatory Scope 3 emission?
Yeah, I didn't cover the technicalities of the various scopes, but so we have freight, business travel, waste, water, refrigerant. So they're all sort of mandatory Scope 3 emissions. And then you, as a business, depending on how you want to communicate and who to, you might decide to add things like employee commuting, paper use, and other things as well, if they're material and significant to your business. So.
And here's a question for Brendan from Julia. Have you ever considered diversifying into non-travel options such as online conferencing products?
Yeah, no, good question. We actually, just so you know, we have pivoted our business right now. So we're running Orbit, House of Travel, and we're actually managing the Healthline contract. So we're actually doing, I've got a team of 50 plus doing vaccinations at the moment. So we're trying to do that. In respect to conferencing, I like that idea. And yes, we did look at it. And if I've understood the question right, in respect to doing kind of conferencing via Zoom, this kind of thing. Is that what I'm understanding?
Julia?
I'm assuming so.
Yeah, and
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
That's correct. Yeah. So there's been quite a bit. Now there's been also a bit of backlash around getting people together. So it's kind of, we've been trying to. We actually managed one conference late in December where we did that, but I think it's a really valid one, Julia. And I think and with the way the world is right now, this is part of what we do now. And doing Zoom is actually positive because we're actually not getting in cars and all going into a venue somewhere. So from that perspective, it is actually reaching some pretty good goals. But yes, we have looked at it. Haven't got a program yet, but thank you for that. That could be quite an interesting suggestion there. Thank you.
Thanks. Just where I see that there's a gap is to improve hybrid conferencing, where you have some people online and some people face to face. I'm not sure that anyone's filled that yet, but anyway, thanks for your answer.
No, that's great. That's great. Thanks, Julia.
Anyone else with questions?
Hi, Cheryl, Paul. Paul Van Dorsten, I chair the Parnell Business Association. So we've just started the journey with Toitū, and I was absolutely staggered how easy it is sometimes just to get on the journey, and how the staff actually are so enrolled in, well, just making a difference. And one of the, just the things like going to Ecotricity, looking at recycling polystyrene rather than go to landfill. And the team are just automatically doing that. And we haven't even started having an audit yet. So I'm just challenged on where our base here is. Well, one of the things that I've picked up is that we're on the all of government contract for commercial office furniture. More and more now, every tender that we are seeing is around a 10% non-price attribute to sustainability. So it is prevalent. And I had a meeting with a customer the other day who was on a panel for all of government. He got knocked out after being 6 years on the program because they didn't have a sustainability program which was measurable. So just reinforcing what Joe was saying from a marketing perspective, doing business with government organisations and government-owned organisations, it's paramount. So yeah, just supporting the Toitū process and program.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to say thanks very much to both of our speakers. Josephine, wonderful presentation, and Brendan, thank you very much indeed. We will have this up on our website within the course of the morning, and so please pass it on to any of your colleagues. The recording will be available to view as well as resources. And have a lovely morning, everyone.
Kia ora. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you. Thanks very much.